after this episode is over, I say you and I forget the quarantine and we just go to the latest casino and shove coins in a BB astromech. What do you say? Sound like a plan? That's good enough for me. Let's go.
Okay, cool. Works for me. Are we going to get arrested and run into a weird stuttering guy?
It's casinos in Niagara Falls, so
yeah, it's a good point. It's a good point. Very good point.
Here we are, back again, sir. Another episode of The Devil's Due. Feels good to be back. How are you doing?
I felt like I felt like I was at such a down note last episode, so I want to maybe not be that way this week. So I guess I'm okay. I'm good. Everything's okay.
I
have the
don't
same.
Remember you.
I have the same, concerns overall about, the pandemic and America and all that I usually do, but I'm not going to let that drag us down here. I'm well. I'm okay. I'm actually fighting. Don't be alarmed. I'm fighting a cold, and Jen is as well, and Grant was as well. It kind of still is. And no, it's not COVID. It's daycare.
Oh, daycare.
Yeah. So I guess I should be thankful that it's not COVID, because it could just as easily as have been that. When you think about it, given that the nature of daycare. Yeah. But nope, it's just we've had the sniffles here for about a week or so, but we're all okay. We're doing fine. And yeah, other than that, dude, it's more of the same. Just raising a toddler, trying to get him to talk more, and trying to keep my sanity. But I don't have the help of my robot friends. If you catch my reference. But I'm good. I'm good. Let's begin the show as we are wont to do nowadays. A little bit of that.
There we go.
Yes, sir. Let's pour ourselves one here. Yes.
So, yeah, I'm glad to hear that it's just a cold and not, global catastrophe.
Yeah.
That most of the rest of the globe seems to have a pretty good handle on at this point.
Well, yeah. Let's not.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't want to dwell on.
Yeah, let us not dwell on the negative.
Yeah.
Okay, so all right, so family caught a cold from daycare, as daycares are like to be sometimes petri dishes.
Yeah, it's, and this is why I don't want to go back to the office.
Yeah.
But in any event, everything's cool. We're fine. We're all fine here. How are you?
We're doing all right. Yeah, fortunately, no colds or anything here. William is being a typical 4-year-old, doing stuff that 4-year-olds are like to do. As far as what I did this week, I finished finally Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah.
For PlayStation 4. Decent finish. Kind of abrupt in its finish, but I liked the way they kind of wrapped it up and left it open for future games, which I would not mind seeing these characters again in another game. They weren't really doing much for me at first, but they grew on me over the journey. So it was very enjoyable. It's really cool because at the end of the game, you kind of have to run away from Darth Vader because you cannot fight him at all. He's just too powerful for you. And I like that they didn't try to shoehorn in a fight with Vader where you're on equal grounds with him, because the character just does not, even at the end of the game when you've buffed up all your stats and whatnot. So it was really good the way they did it. I enjoyed it. Also this week, was it Thursday? Wednesday or Thursday? When was the 30th? 30th was yesterday.
That would be Thursday.
Yes. So yesterday, the new Transformers series dropped on Netflix, and I'm already done with it. Which, I mean, granted, it is only 6 episodes.
Yeah.
So, and only about 25 minutes each. So that saying I'm done with it is not saying a lot. But Drew.
Yeah.
This is the series that I've been waiting for such a long time.
This has been on your radar for a while.
Yes, and it has delivered. I know you are not as much a Transformer fan as you are a G.I. Joe fan. Giving how little of a time commitment it is, I would highly, highly recommend it.
Well, all right. If I can muster any spare caught myself there. Spare time. Oh, Carl.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel you. I do.
I know you do.
Most of my watching was done late at night after everyone went to bed, and then a couple episodes like on my lunch break, and just finished it up tonight. But yeah. So yeah, that was my week. I'm really excited about this episode, been looking forward to this one for a long time. But, of course, there is a ceremony to stand on. Dear listeners, if you would like to tell us about your week, talk to us, communicate with us in any way, you can do so at the following social media locations. You can follow us on Twitter at Devils Do Pod. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/devilsdupod. You can email us at thedevilsdupod@gmail.com, or you can find all these resources available to you on our website, thedevilsdupodcast.com. Drew, that being said, we do have some questions.
All right.
Starting out with Mr. Tom Fenzel, who submitted his question not in email form, but actually on the post we had saying that we were taking emails for this week's show.
That's
folks,
perfectly valid way.
Perfectly valid. You can put your questions there. We're all good with that. Tom says, hope I made it in time for questions. Spoilers, Tom. You did. What are your favorite strategy video games, such as Age of Empires, Civilizations? I got really into Civ 6 on the Switch.
Ooh.
And then also for Drew, how's the brewing going? Anything planned?
Do you want to go first with the strategy games?
I'll try the one. Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Tactics was really good. There was also on the PlayStation 1 Front Mission series, which is kind of like turn-based strategy with mechs. And you have to load out your mechs. Certain weapons are too heavy for certain chassis, things like that. And it was always a lot of fun. So yeah, those two. Final Fantasy Tactics and Front Mission.
All right. For me, it goes. My dalliances and strategy games go back a ways. I don't play them with that much regularity, but I do have favorites. Way back in the day, I was really into StarCraft, the OG StarCraft, and then also Red Alert, Command and Conquer 2. I think that's what it was. Was that what my another great one? And I mean, those are forever ago now, but those are rock solid games in my of course, my own biased opinion. And then the Civilization series in general, I love, and I think I've said that before on this show. I too, Tom, have Civ 6 on Switch, and I love it. So haven't played it in a while because once I got Animal Crossing and Doom Eternal, I got kind of sucked down those avenues. But Civilization is just great. My favorite one still, however, is Civ 4. It just has the right mix of everything for me, and it has those dulcet tones of Leonard Nimoy as the game narrator, which I love. Not to say that the narrator in Civ 6 is bad, but come on, man, it's Leonard Nimoy in 4. That's a high bar to clear. But no, 6 is a fantastic game. Although I do, I don't love the combat in it as much as I did in 4. People might complain about the unit stacking in Civ 4, but hey man, I loved stacking units. You could have a tile with like 20 units on it, and it was like, yeah, good luck, bro. You're not getting by this guy. Whereas now in 6, it's just 1 unit per tile, and you gotta. I just find combat and warfare to be a lot more difficult, and that could just be a me thing. I have to get better at it, but I generally try not to be a warlike civilization when I play anyway. But unfortunately, your neighbors may not be as friendly, and you have to, sometimes you got to clear a little space. So, but no, I do love Civilization. Civ 6 on Switch is fantastic. So, yeah, there you go. And beer. I have not brewed in quite a while, but the itch is definitely there. I have recipes that I've been tinkering with. I'm ready to make them. I just need time and potentially another set of hands to help me out on brew day to make it happen. But yeah, I definitely want to get back to it. I love beer, love making it. It's a lot of fun, and I miss doing it, to be honest. And if I could go down a little tangential wink to everyone, if I had the ideal dream gig for me, besides being, super heavy metal hero with Metallica bankroll, which will never happen. No, I would love to have my own brewery of some kind. But again, pipe dreams. So, yeah, there you go.
Alrighty. Cool. Let's see here. So, going into our emails. Starting out with Adam, frequent show emailer.
Does Adam have a last name?
He does. Adam Williams.
All right.
So, Adam writes us, hey friends, thanks for taking my email. Carl and Drew, I have a movie warm-up question. What is your favorite quote from a movie? Is this the same as your most used quote in everyday life? If they're used different, please share the most used one as well.
From any movie?
From favorite movie quote.
Oh God, dude, I could go on and on.
That's that could be an episode in of itself.
Seriously, I quote so many, and and then that doesn't even count the times. There's phrases I'll use, and then that doesn't even count the times when I'll hear something, and my immediate response will be a very random movie quote from a movie that I love. You know what I mean? And is it my favorite quote? No, but I immediately will think of it and pull it out of nowhere and throw it at somebody, and they'll, ideally know what I'm talking about and laugh, or if they don't, then I just know that I'm an old man referencing an old movie. So, this is a challenging question. Yeah, I can there's great lines that apply to a lot of situations. And if I had to really think about it, the 2 movies that I pull from the most are The Godfather, and not in the ways that you think, and Top Gun, and also not in the ways that you think. I know it sounds so stupid, but there's just little lines that I can pull out as responses to situations, and they just work, and they're stupid, but that's why they're great. So, if there's someone asks me to do something and it's a really easy job, something, just, hey, can you do this or whatever? And I'll pull out To Walk in the Park, Kazansky. Like, and no one knows what I'm talking about unless you've seen Top Gun like 1,000 times. Then you laugh. It's dumb, but there it is. And The Godfather's full of them, but none of like the real. I don't use like the keep your friends close, but your enemies closer. That's all. Yeah. I'm talking like the scene when after Paulie gets killed and someone asks about Paulie, and then why is his name escaping me right now? Clemenza, he just goes, "Oh, Paulie, won't see him no more." I pull that out all the time for no reason whatsoever. Like, oh, won't see him no more. Like, stupid stuff like that. It sounds so dumb, but there it is. And then obviously, like, Pulp Fiction, I can recite, and I can find various lines in that to apply to day-to-day situations. So, yeah, they're movies, man. I love movies, and I will quote movies all the time. It's so difficult to pick a favorite.
So, very episode relevant. Probably a quote that I find myself using more often nowadays is, "Hope is like the sun. If you only believe in it when you can see it, you will never make it through the night."
That's a good one.
That quote is from our own General Leia Organa, the film we're going to discuss today. But as far as an all-time favorite, without giving it too much of a deep dive of thought, one that instantly springs to mind, and I went to, because I want to make sure I get it perfectly, because it's like one of those ones that you can kind of break up into smaller chunks. I went to IMDb to pull it up, and the quote is as such: "Some wild-eyed 8-foot-tall maniac grabs your neck, taps the back of your favorite head up against the barroom wall, and he looks at you crooked in the eye and asks you if you paid your dues. You just stare that big sucker right back in the eye, and you remember what old Jack Burton always says at a time like that. Have you paid your dues, Jack? Yes, sir, the check is in the mail."
Well done.
Big Trouble in Little China, folks. If you have never seen that movie, you are doing a disservice to yourself and a disservice to society.
And if you are a Mortal Kombat fan and you've never seen Big Trouble in Little China, well, then I have some bad news on the origin of your favorite franchise, my friend. Because Ed Boon and John Tobias definitely watch Big Trouble in Little China.
You watch Big Trouble in Little China, then go play through Mortal Kombat 1, a.k.a. Big Trouble in Little China fighting game. Because so much.
You know it.
You're going to see David Lopan and you're going to be like, "Shang Tsung?" You're going, "No. This is the OG. This is the original."
Raiden, what are you doing here?
No. He's not Raiden, and he's got two other friends.
Right.
So, okay, Adam has some other questions as well. Now starting a new segment with this email, the what ifs and casting. If Russell Crowe was in gladiator shape, what Marvel superhero would you cast him as?
Ooh.
Not like Russell Crowe kind of keeps the RPMs neutral for me.
Yeah, I'm not a big Russell Crowe guy myself either.
Doesn't do a lot for me. But Gladiators, all well and good. I don't know. I can't.
It's not coming to me either, to be honest.
Yeah, maybe we'll circle back to that one.
Yeah.
If Chadwick Boseman said no, and you could pick any actor from any era to play Black Panther, who would you pick?
Oh man,
Space and time are no restraint. Wow.
I mean, I was gonna say. I mean, my instinct is Eddie Murphy, But I think I think it's just because the Wakanda Zamunda connection is so strong in my brain that there was a natural reaction to be like, give it to Eddie Murphy. Peak Eddie Murphy.
I am going to go. It's not a sexy pick, but I think it's a good pick. I'm going Michael Jai White.
Ooh, sure.
Because he would just
tracks
the passion that man would bring to it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think he would also play a great Luke Cage, to be honest with you.
Yeah. If things went better with Edward Norton with Playing Nice with Others, would you have preferred him over Mark Ruffalo in the Avengers movies? Tough to say for me because obviously we've got to spend more time with Ruffalo than we did Edward Norton. I really liked The Incredible Hulk. Same. I like how he played the character. I actually prefer that visual design of the Hulk to what we got in Avengers going forward.
Oh, really? Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I like Ruffalo Hulk.
Ruffalo Hulk is fine. I am not knocking Ruffalo Hulk. I'm just saying, given a choice of the design and visual appearance of the character, the Ed Norton Hulk to me was superior.
Interesting. Okay. I kind of prefer Ruffalo, but I'm not going to knock you for that. That's a tough one. Because like Norton brings a certain like intensity and cachet kind of to any part that he's in.
Right.
So it would have been interesting, but I don't know that this is tough because he brings a kind of bigness to it, and like you're already in a movie with Robert Downey Jr. being the bigness, so you might get a little clash of the stars kind of on screen. Maybe there's not quite enough room on screen for both of those personalities. I don't know. Whereas I think Ruffalo, he blended right in and totally worked.
I think Edward Norton also definitely a better physical appearance, Bruce Banner as well, because Ruffalo looks. He doesn't look like cut, but he looks a little built, and I don't want Bruce Banner to look built.
He's a little beefier than Ed Norton. Ed Norton can do. I mean, Banner's supposed to look kind of puny, right? like
Yeah.
And not no disrespect to Ed Norton, because I'm sure he could kick my butt or whatever, but he can do that. Like he has that kind of look about him. Like not saying he's puny, but you know what I mean. He's thin. He's kind of emaciated more so than Mark Ruffalo. And that does fit the Banner persona more than Ruffalo's general appearance. But again, looking ahead, I think Ruffalo also, though, proved himself to be more versatile than Ed Norton probably would have been in the more comedic stuff at like Thor Ragnarok and Endgame.
Possibly.
I can't picture Ed Norton having that much comedy. I can't see him being. He seems very self-serious to me, and I can't see him being as good-hearted about the stuff in Ragnarok and in Endgame. But that's me. Maybe he could, but I don't know. I think Ruffalo nailed that stuff very well.
Yeah, and again, I enjoy Ruffalo. I'm not knocking Ruffalo at all. Edward Norton actually did do a comedy once. I enjoy it. I can't make an argument for it being a good movie. It's a little movie he did with Ben Stiller called Keeping the Faith. And he was funny. He was carrying his own. So yeah. And I still can't think of anything for Russell Crowe to play.
Yeah, no, Oh, you know what? I'm not saying I want this, but I could see it. Peak Russell Crowe. Maybe for Doom. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe. I'm not 100%, but it just came to me and I'm like, yeah, that could work.
If Daniel Day-Lewis said no, then he might be like a good fourth choice. Okay, so moving on. Thank you, as always, Adam. To our next frequent contributor. Honestly, dude, Adam and Cyrus Moore here are kind of, I don't want to say they're taking over Alan and Jay, but this week we have Jay. We still have no Alan, and we have not had Alan and Jay for the past couple episodes. So,
yep. Nothing lasts forever, man.
Colin, slacker. That's all I'm saying. Hey. So, Mr. Cyrus Moore, greetings, gentlemen. Hope you are well. I myself am somewhat distressed after your last podcast, finding out that you both like The Last Jedi. In the words of great Tommy Lee Jones speaking to Jim Carrey, I cannot sanction your buffoonery. I am, of course, kidding. I'm glad people can enjoy The Last Jedi. However, I simply cannot. There is very little for me to enjoy in the movie from a writer and character standpoint.
Well, hopefully I disagree.
Hopefully we'll be able to change his mind. The divisiveness of the fan base is also disappointing. I think we should highlight and celebrate our differences instead of feeling like we always have to defend them.
Sir,
spirit,
never mind. Go on. Have you fandomed before, sir?
Yeah. Especially Star Wars.
Yeah.
Because Star Wars can be the best and worst fandom out there at the same time. In that spirit, my question for you both is, what are some other things you like that seemingly a lot of other people don't? Or something you don't like that a lot of other people do?
Oh, God. Well,
what does Drew hate that everyone likes? That's another anthology series. That's not just another episode.
Yeah, that's gonna take some time, buddy. Put it this way: if it's popular in any capacity, I probably hate it. That's a gross oversimplification, but I mean, it's not wrong, I guess. But anyway, so we have to we have to defend our questionable choices.
Something we like that the vast majority does not, and then vice versa. I have one, and I've mentioned it before on this show, and since you brought the franchise up, I'll mention it again. Godfather 3, I enjoy.
Okay, that's your baby.
I struggle to make an argument for it being good,
but you like it.
But I enjoy it. I like it because of the journey that Michael takes, how he comes full circle, and where the movie takes him. I like that about it.
Okay. I'm struggling for a cinematic example necessarily.
You didn't say it's got to be a cinematic example. You just say something.
In general, I like Zelda 2, and I know a lot of people don't. That's like the black sheep of the series, but I enjoy Zelda 2 very much. Let's see. I like the Metallica album Saint Anger, and that is like a cardinal sin in the heavy metal community. Not that I consider myself a member of the heavy metal community, despite being in a heavy metal band and liking mainly heavy metal bands. I just me and the community part of it don't always align. But yeah, I like that album, and I know why people don't, and I don't care. I like it. And I think a lot of other people do too, and they're just, they go with the direction the wind is blowing, and they say that it's bad or that they hate it. So whatever, that's certainly their prerogative. Those are two examples that come to mind. Oh, and I like Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and I think a lot of people that's become like the punching bag of the series, which is funny in a series where the Crystal Skull exists.
Yeah, Indiana Jones. Temple of Doom is great.
Right. Now, look, I'm not going to tell you that it's not problematic. It's very problematic, actually. There's a lot of racial stuff in it that's kind of definitely questionable. However,
Yeah.
however, once that movie, I mean, if you can put that stuff aside, it's a intense movie, and it's full of memorable characters and memorable scenes,
Yeah.
and
And
it's
it's not
good.
the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah, right, exactly. So yeah, I mean, there you go, man. I'm trying. Is there anything else that's like a hot take? I don't have much of a other hot take. Yeah,
I
there you
like
go.
Super Mario Sunshine.
That's a hot take. No, people like that game. I'm not a fan of it, but yeah, that's one. Sure, sure.
Now, is there something that
Final Fantasy VII
something?
is my overrated one. People love that game, and I think it's fine, but I don't have the love of it that a lot of people do.
Yeah, I think for me it's probably The Walking Dead.
Okay.
Everybody loves The Walking Dead. I'm just like, zombies.
I love the
I get it.
comics. The show is terrible and has been for years.
They're coming. The comics are coming back, Drew, in color form.
Yeah, I heard about that. We'll say that for the news, I guess. That's a terrible idea, but whatever.
It's a new series called Walking Dead. Cash grab.
Mm-hmm. That's dumb. Anyway, well, to be continued.
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah,
Right,
there you go.
So, yeah, Cyrus, thank you very much for your questions as always. Now on to Mr. J. Gelsomino, who's damed us with his presence this week. Drew and Carl, what would be your dream job across the spectrum of entertainment / pop culture?
Well, I think I've already relayed that. If I could make my living making music, I would be very, very happy. Unfortunately, that is not something that's doable, but that would be my dream.
For me, it would probably be head writer for Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, I could see that. Or if we can get paid to do this, I would do that too.
That'd be great. Hey, folks,
fantastic.
if you know someone who wants to throw us a fat check of sponsor money, as long as we're not Nazis, we'll probably take it.
No.
And you'll get a lot more content that way.
Yeah, if I got paid to do this, I would put a lot more work into this.
You guys would probably get daily episodes.
I'd be happy to do that. That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
But alas, real life.
Casper hasn't shown up on our doorstep.
NordVPN, give us a call.
Stamps.com. What the heck?
For real.
Drew, what is your favorite food to cook and in what way?
Wow. Oh man. I mean, I've been cooking up a storm, dude. My favorite food to cook. That's a challenge. That is a challenge. Damn, that's a great question. I wish I were more prepared for that. I'll tell you what. Something I enjoy making recently. This is by no means my favorite thing ever to cook, but just something I've really enjoyed recently making, and it turns out great every single time. And it's not even that difficult, but there's a little labor involved. But I've been doing this one pot shrimp orzo, and it is delicious, refreshing, and it's not that hard to make. And I've been making it like at least once every other week, if not once a week, the past few weeks. And I'm just really into making that right now, and it's great. So that's my current answer. But I also really enjoy a good steak. I mean, it's so easy. If you got a cast iron skillet, man, you can crank out a steak anytime you want and have it be the best steak you've ever had in your own house. There's also a high degree of satisfaction in making, and smoking and long, lengthy cooking on the grill outside, smoking, that kind of stuff. I don't necessarily think that's my favorite thing to do, though, because it can be labor intensive, or at least time/stress intensive. Making sure temperatures are where you want them for an extended period of time can be a real pain. But when you do it right and the end result is what you want, that's a good feeling, knowing that you did something great, that you really nailed it. So, yeah, it's tough. That's a tough question. But currently, it's that shrimp orzo. It's really easy and it's delicious.
Alrighty. So Jay's question for me, Carl, what do you prefer, DIY or HGTV?
I like that question too, But go on.
I'll let you answer it because I don't watch either one.
Oh, dude, I'm well versed in HGTV. Me and the Property Brothers are boys. All right. I will watch some good bones, my friend.
Things I did not hear. I did not think Drew would say this episode.
If I have to, I'll watch Hometown, but it's a little more difficult because the woman is like, she looks like the Uber Karen. She looks like the final boss Karen. Even though she doesn't come off that way, she just looks that way. And it's in Mississippi, so it's like kind of weird that they're putting all this money into these houses, and it's still like, yeah, but you're in Mississippi. No disrespect intended to our Mississippi listeners, but come on, man. Mississippi.
Okay. That works.
Anyway, and then you always have to laugh at shows like House Hunters, where it's like this couple is like, oh, I'm a freelance artist and she collects beads. Our budget's $2.5 million. Like, what? What are you talking about? Yeah, that'll drive you nuts. But anyway, HGTV all the way.
Alrighty. Well, good on you, sir. All right, Jay, thank you very much for the questions. That does it for the questions this week. Thank you, everyone who contributed. Now on to the news. Kind of a light week. Not a ton going on. Comic-Con is happening-ish.
Yeah, it is, but nothing is really coming out of it. Nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you can announce something, but hey, we're doing this thing sometime, ?
Yeah.
One thing we do have for certain out of Comic-Con, though, Drew, is we do have a new trailer for Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Yes, we do. Oh, do we?
It's hitting all the right chords. We're getting this same day digital and theatrical for whatever theaters are actually open. I believe the end of August, 1st of September.
They keep. I think they've changed the date twice now, and it's like I don't know what to make of release dates right now.
We're going to get it sooner than the next Avengers film.
Yes, that much I can confidently say.
We will say that. And seeing as up until about a year ago, we didn't think we'd ever get another Bill and Ted movie, I'm fine with that.
It looks fun.
Yeah, looks fun. Looks like it's got something to say, and not in like the Poochie way.
Did you notice when they see Death again in the new trailer? He's playing hopscotch by himself and he's cheating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some things will never change.
Some things, the more they change,
it's beautiful.
So
it's beautiful.
It looks great. I can't wait for it. It's gonna be a lot of fun. I will definitely do a video on demand for that one.
Without sounding like a backhanded compliment, honestly, it looks better than it has any right to look.
Valid.
Like, that
is valid.
It come on, Bill and I love the first two Bill and Ted movies, but like I know that they are of a time and of a place. So if you're going to tell me that they're going to make a new one now, obviously the cynical reaction is like, oh God, it's going to be so sad. They're so old. It can't possibly be, whatever, right? Then you see the trailer and it's like, dude, this looks so awesome.
Yeah.
It should not, but it does.
The only drawback of the trailer is the absence of George Carlin is palpable.
Yeah.
In there. There's a giant hole missing from that, unfortunately.
I mean, not for nothing, but I feel that every day just in life. But yeah, in the context of Bill and Ted, yeah, definitely. Carlin is missed. I love George Carlin.
As do many. Okay, so we got that. We also got another really... Actually, before we get to that, let's get to some, a little bit expected, but in the way it happened, unexpected news. Now, Drew, we are normally not one to talk about, really care about award shows.
No,
for the most part.
I think
we might make mention of
crap.
We might make mention of the Best Picture nomination, something like that, when they happen. If there is something of note in there, be real interesting to see how they're going to do it this year. But that being said, the Emmy nominations came out this past week, and Drew, Watchmen and Mandalorian got all the nominations.
For a show that a lot of people claimed they did not like, and again, claimed because you know what happened with the Rotten Tomatoes score and all that, and the review bombing and all that business. But anybody that really watches this stuff knows quality when they see it, and any nomination you could throw at Watchmen is going to be well deserved, because that was a lightning in a bottle magical season of television. So all the nods, all the credit. I don't put a lot of stock in these award shows, but at least they had the smarts to hey, game recognizes game, and Watchmen was so well crafted that come on, it deserves it,
Yeah.
Again, I don't care. I don't care about this stuff, but if it deserves it, it deserves any praise you want to put upon it.
Yeah, and of all the nominations it got, let us not forget the most important nomination: the Best Supporting Actor for Mr. Louis Gossett Jr., a.k.a. Calvin Burchard, a.k.a. Chappie Sinclair. Give that man all the awards.
Well, to be fair, I am a little more interested in the musical nominations that it got. So
that is not important, Drew. That's not important. It's important.
You realize that if Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross get an Emmy for their Watchmen score, which in my opinion they absolutely should, and probably will. Let me just pull up the contenders on that in that category. Where is it?
They are against the Mandalorian.
Yeah, sorry, but Watchmen's music is way better. Let's see. Well, in any case, if Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross win those Emmys for that music, they will be one step closer to the very exclusive and elusive EGOT, the Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony Award. So if they want to make the Downward Spiral Broadway play, and get the Tony for it, they'll have the EGOT.
If they win the Emmy, Trent's going to be like, Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
Let's see
I
if we
know.
can do. Oh man,
Make it
watch.
happen. Make it happen, Trent.
So yeah, Watchmen getting a ton of Emmy nominations is nice to see. Not I'm given the again, like you mentioned, the lightning in a bottle, the quality of the production. It's an HBO production, so obviously those are predisposed to kind of getting Emmy nominations. So the two we mentioned, I think the amount of nominations Mandalorian got is more surprising
um,
than best dramatic series
yeah,
for the
whoa.
Mandalorian.
Yeah, that's look. I
Giancarlo
I
Esposito?
love Mando, but I mean, I don't know that I could get there. you know, I don't know.
Drew, this is the way.
Look, it is the way. I'm here for the way. You know that, but I don't know. Let's maybe pump the brakes a little bit. I don't know. I don't mean it like that. I'm not trying to crap on the Mandalorian. You know I love the Mandalorian.
I know you do.
But it's a little like, really? Best series?
Also, keep into mind a lot of television has been disrupted just as much as the film industry has. There's a lot of shows that haven't been able to finish out their seasons because they're still filming when everything hit. So I'm not saying, it's not deserving. I'm saying it's a little. There's going to be an asterisk there.
I do have to point out a gaping and terrible oversight, a snub, if you will. Rhea Seehorn from Better Call Saul. She plays Kim Wexler on Better Call Saul. She was not.
Okay.
She was not nominated for Best Actress. That is criminal. That is criminal, and that is disgraceful. She has been a rock star on that show for the whole duration, but especially in the last couple seasons. She is knocking it out of the park, and for her not to get recognized is, I mean, again, I don't put a lot of stock in these things, and this is why, because her not getting recognized for her performance on Better Call Saul is disgraceful. That is disgraceful. She is tremendous on that show, and that's on a show with many tremendous performances. So, yeah, this is why I don't like award shows, because they can often really, really overlook and misread the room. So, anyway.
Yeah. But Louis Gossett Jr. got out.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's great. He deserves it. Anyone involved, honestly, anyone involved.
Taika Waititi got one for IG-11.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my God! What? Come on, let's slow down.
No,
and I love Taika.
Up.
I love Taika. I love IG-11. But come on, like, hey, you know what? Fine. It's cool.
Giancarlo Esposito got nominated.
I saw that. And here's an example of what I'm talking about. Again, with Better Call Saul. Giancarlo Esposito is great on Better Call Saul, but he's not doing anything that great or that much greater than he already did in the same role on Breaking Bad. Okay. Meanwhile, on Better Call Saul, the actor who is playing Lalo, I want to get it right because he's awesome. He is portrayed by Tony Dalton. And is he related to Timothy Dalton? Let me see. Is he related to Timothy Dalton? I don't know, but Tony Dalton, the actor who was playing Lalo Salamanca on Better Call Saul, dude, he is amazing. And in the last season especially, he is incredible. Like, incredible in this role. And, like, yes, Giancarlo Esposito is amazing. You know I love that man. But if we're talking about awards for work this year, this season, Tony Dalton all the way over Giancarlo Esposito. But what do I know? I don't know. I don't know how these things are decided, but that's just me. That's just me as a fan of that show talking right now. So,
all right.
He's great. Tony Dalton's great. Giancarlo's great too. You know I love him.
But neither one of them can hold a candle to Chappie Sinclair.
Who among us can hold a candle to Chappie Sinclair?
No, none of us.
None of us.
None of us. So, all right. So that's cool. It'll be interesting to see what it wins. They should both win everything. They should both win categories they're both nominated in, too. Just chop the Emmy in half.
We all win. You know what? We all win.
Okay, so getting on to, we've got some trailers that dropped this week. Not really huge trailers. Interesting trailers, definitely worth mentioning. We got a trailer for the new season of Archer. Drew, I'm not sure how much we've really talked about how much we love Archer on this show.
Well, here's the thing, Carl. I love Archer up to a point. Archer. I love Archer to a point. And that point is basically when he gets shot and falls in the pool. And then I don't love Archer as much anymore.
The past couple seasons have been kind of rough because they've all been like coma-induced hallucinations.
Yes.
And we just want to get back to standard Archer. I say that, though, funny enough, my favorite season is the season where it first started being non-standard Archer. That would be the cocaine season.
Archer Vice.
But
even Vice wasn't a hallucination season. Like it was, right. It was the characters that we all knew as we knew them, just in a slightly different situation. Whereas the coma seasons have been, variants of the characters we know, because it's all in Archer's head. So it's not really Mallory. It's not really Pam. It's not really, Cyril, etc. It's just these weird kind of pastiches of them mixed with sci-fi or noir or whatever. And I just don't, that kind of takes the wind out of it for me. So
no, I get that. I to a point I agree. There's also something to be said for taking a creative siesta.
I get it. For
kind of stretching your legs in other directions.
But again,
just having fun with stuff. But no, I get what you're saying.
I understand. I know. I appreciate that, but I need we're talking about a cartoon, right? So like, what I'm about to say is silly, but like, I need some stakes. I need some. I've invested my time and interest in these characters, and what I'm being presented with isn't really those characters. So right. I am going to be not as receptive to it.
No, I get that. Okay. I get that.
So he's out of the coma now.
Drew, at the end of the day, I just want someone to start giving Pam cocaine again.
Fair enough.
Pam, stop eating the cocaine. So yeah, he's out of the coma. He's back to being a spy.
I'm here for it.
Fun stuff will abound. Yes. Can't wait for it.
Yes.
So another trailer that debuted this week. The DC animated films the past couple of years have really not drawn me in the way they used to, because they've been doing this whole connected universe thing, continuing narrative between the films, and they were all kind of using the new 52 designs of the characters, and it didn't even do them that well. Like, I couldn't stand to watch Green Lantern and all. You know how much I really enjoy Green Lantern. Prior to doing that, the last really good DC animated film was Batman Under the Red Hood. Batman was voiced by Bruce Greenwood, who became like my second favorite Batman voice, probably 1B to Kevin Conroy's 1A.
Okay.
And it was really good. It was really enjoyable. This past week, we got a trailer for an animated adaptation of the classic Batman story, A Death in the Family. The classic story in which Joker kills the Jason Todd version of Robin.
Yes.
And this is kind of a good touchstone in comic book history, because when they did this in the comics, the fans ultimately decided Robin's fate. It was a 4-issue arc in the main Batman title, and at the end of the 3rd issue, Robin's in a warehouse, and the warehouse explodes. And you were given 2 choices to call a 1-900 number for Robin to live and another 900 number for Robin to die. So kids, gather around and listen to Uncle Carl as he spins you a real quick tale. Back in the day, before the internet, before cell phones and your Fortnites and your floss dances and whatnot, we had these things called landlines. And sometimes you could call special numbers to talk to like celebrities you liked, like Corey Haim or Corey Feldman. You could call them and hear pre-recorded messages and be charged $3 a minute to hear these pre-recorded messages. Maybe you would get the weather report from Corey Feldman. Maybe Kirk Cameron would tell you your horoscope. And isn't that funny in hindsight? But, so you had to spend some money to call these numbers, and you decided whether or not Robin lived or died in the 4th issue. And he ended up, he died. I think it was something by 38 votes.
It's very close, yeah.
Voted for him to die. So they're doing an animated adaptation of that story. Here's the really interesting twist. They're doing something new, and I saw it in the trailer, and I was instantly like, okay, this is cool that you're doing this, and I'm really interested to see this now. So what they are doing is, it's an interactive movie in that when it gets to the point where Robin would die, from what I understand, there's 3 choices. There's he dies, he lives, and then there's like a 3rd choice saying he cheats death. I'm not quite sure what that is. But whatever one you pick, you get a completely different film from that point forward.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and it's done with the same voice actors, the same visual style that Under the Red Hood was done in. And it really looks interesting, and I'm definitely probably gonna watch this when it comes out, because I like when they try to do something new, and this is definitely trying something new.
I mean, the technology is there to do something like this.
Yeah.
So that's a neat way to do a classic story with a very classic story behind it. Yeah, interesting.
So yeah, that I believe comes out in the fall.
So when they make the Hush movie, can there be an option for Hush to actually be Jason Todd?
They already made the Hush movie.
Oh crap!
but from the trailer for Death in the Family, it does appear in one of the options that Jason Todd actually becomes Hush.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah, check out the trailer. I think you'd dig it.
All right.
So last thing we have to talk about is Gen Con is kind of going on this week too. Again, ish.
Kind of, yeah.
Gen Con is the sort of the San Diego Comic Con of the board game industry. And a lot of new stuff has been announced. There's new. I'm very excited for new content for Marvel Champions coming out. So, Drew, really quickly, just quick side note before we get to what we're going to talk about. So, Marvel Champions, you played it once. They're coming out with Ant-Man and Wasp hero packs.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how, like, in Marvel Champions, you can flip from, like, if you're being Spider-Man, you flip from Peter Parker to being Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Well, Ant-Man and Wasp have 3 forms in the game. You start out Scott Lang, you flip your card to Ant-Man, and then you can unfold the card to a larger card and become Giant Man.
Okay.
How cool is that? It's just really kind of
neat.
So, Fantasy Flight Games, the company that makes my beloved X-Wing, and kind of is one of the biggest companies in board gaming because they get all the top line licenses. They have Star Wars, they have Marvel, and in what they've done with Marvel predominantly with Champions is it's really cool. But they announced this week that there is an X-Men board game coming out. And this, I think, was worth mentioning because, as far as mainstream product, aside from films, it's been a long, dry season for the mutants of Marvel.
Well, they're back in a big way recently. The House of X stuff and all that.
I mean, are they though?
Yeah, they are.
If I went back and read House of X, would I be able to continue reading those books and not be confused by the 3rd issue?
If you read them, I think you would get it. I'm not saying you would like it, but I think you would get it. So, I get it, but I'm kind of not super invested in it mentality. But I feel you though. Like the MCU. I mean, look, if we're being honest, the MCU has kind of sucked up all of the air in the Marvel world over the last decade. And they've kind of snuffed out the interest in the X-Men and the non-MCU stuff in a way. That's just the way it is right now. And it's not like the comics' fault. It's just right. it's just in the consciousness of people.
It's not the comics' fault either at the same time.
The comics are the reason the comics. Well, I mean, they were downplayed intentionally to spite film studios and whatever, and that is the comics' fault to a degree. But I mean, you could still be a creator on those books and like really try your best to tell great, riveting stories. And for I'm not trying to slag on the works of anyone that's worked on that stuff, but there's something to be said for just a feeling of importance in the air, so to speak. And the X-Men just haven't had that in a really long time. So, they're starting to build them back up in other media now that, Disney/Marvel is fully in control of the property again. So, here we go. For a long time, they got pushed out. You couldn't get a game like this getting announced. You couldn't get a Fantastic Four expansion into other stuff. You couldn't, that stuff was all squashed because of the movie stuff, and that's no longer an issue. So here they come. They're starting to come back. So just wait. It's coming. once they get the big movie push, it's all everything old will be new again, and it'll all feel great.
I will be very interested to see how the game plays.
Yeah,
it does have a very nice visual presentation, and that's kind of on par for Fantasy Flight games.
They seem to be invoking a lot of the 90s animated series vibe, which, to be fair, is probably a smart thing, because, there's a lot more fans of that stuff than there are current fans, to be frank. So,
yeah,
remind people of the things that they like, and they'll check it out.
All righty. So I think we can fairly say with a lot of confidence that Alan will probably pick that one up. Being a giant X-Men fan as he is. So yeah, I look forward to playing it. That about does it for the news, Drew, unless you can think of anything?
Nope. It's news has been weird lately, so I'm good.
All right. So that brings us to our next installment, revisiting that galaxy far, far away. Easily the most divisive installment, as mentioned previously by Mr. Cyrus Moore. And, of course, we are going to be talking about The Last Jedi. Now, obviously, there was a lot of build-up to this movie. People had questions from Force Awakens. There was questions of Snoke, Luke, a whole bunch of stuff going into this. And there was a lot of build-up to it. And I remember when we saw this movie, we didn't see it together. We saw it like a day apart. And that Friday night, there was... I actually, you know what? I don't think it was a Friday night. I think we were just doing like a random game night over the weekend. And we were very confused, and we kind of looked at each other. We were like, is this movie bad? because we weren't, we had been trained by the Phantom Menace to, not just blindly accept Star Wars as being good.
No.
Our brains had like a defensive firewalls to put up to prevent us from having that trauma again. So we were very unsure of it. But I remember that, like, you went to see it again, and I was thinking about it more. I only saw it once in the theaters, but more and more I thought about it. The more and more we were kind of like, okay, not only is this not bad, this is really good.
I've thought that for a long time, and I still consider it good. But having rewatched it this week, let's put it this way. I get why people don't like it. I will say that. I get why people don't like it. And
yeah,
as a movie... Yeah, but here's the thing. I think the reason a lot of people don't like it isn't necessarily because of its merits as a film. They don't like it because of the things that it's about and the things that it has to say, which are the reasons why I like it and think that it's good. Having said that, as a movie, I've always felt it's a little choppy, and there's definitely problems with its narrative and its character arcs, and I still feel that way. So
it definitely has flaws.
It is a flawed movie for sure. And I want to reiterate what I'm trying to say about this movie is strictly about this movie as a sequel to The Force Awakens, as a new entry into the Star Wars franchise and what that entails. And I'm not reacting to it necessarily as someone who is trying to make it fit into the Star Wars lore or canon or my own wish fulfillment necessarily. But again, it's not It's not perfect. It is flawed. However, I think it has tremendous value in that it's a Star Wars movie about things and about subjects that other movies in this franchise are not. Like, I love Star Wars, but generally speaking,
Right.
it's really not about that much. It's fantasy, okay?
Right.
This one definitely had messages and themes and things to say about this fantasy. And for that, I really enjoy it. And I think it's rather brilliant in a lot of ways. Flawed, but brilliant. And that's why I like it. On the flip side, you get something like, and we're going to talk about this in our next episode, and to be honest with you, I'm actually dreading talking about it. You get something like The Rise of Skywalker, and I have nothing to say necessarily about The Rise of Skywalker in any real capacity, because it doesn't leave me with much to say at all, because it's just fluff, and a lot of it at that. Whereas The Last Jedi is like trying to really relay themes and feelings and messages to the viewer. And again, narratively, it's not perfect. But overall, the things it's trying to say, I agree with and I think are interesting. And had this whole trilogy been planned out, the seeds that it plants or could have picked up from or could have gone on, this all could have, it could all have been so much better in a way. But alas, we that's not the way it went. But again, just looking at this movie, I totally understand why people have problems with it. However, I commend it for having the fortitude to have themes and stick to them and be about something.
Right. So whenever I start talking about this movie, I usually lead with the following statement. With this film, Rian Johnson burned down everything Star Wars had become to that point and reestablished everything Star Wars was meant to be.
Go on.
And he does so primarily through Luke. I think Luke is one of the first things we really have to talk about when talking about The Last Jedi, because he was the thing that people were looking forward to the most.
Right.
And probably the main reason why people who don't like the film don't like it. And like you said, I understand that. Having grown up with the character of Luke and having gone with him on his journey countless times and getting this idea in my head of what of the person he would grow into, of the Jedi Master he would grow into. And to have that moment in the beginning of the film where is the continuation of the climactic scene of Force Awakens, where he's handed his lightsaber, his father's lightsaber, Anakin's lightsaber, something he never thought he would see again. And we all spent like years wondering what was his reaction to that going to be. And then he just tosses it over his shoulder and walks away. Just like, you have an initial chuckle because it's a funny thing when you first see it, but then like you're like,
well,
wait, wait, what?
Yeah, see, here's the thing. I think and that okay. what that reaction is, and what I think the problem here is a question of tone, okay? And for whatever reason, This movie definitely bent comedic more than any other entry of this franchise. So, like, in the very beginning, when we get this sequence with Poe doing this like womp womp routine with General Hux on the on the destroyer or whatever, or the dreadnought.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie, it does feel very odd and out of place in Star Wars, given the gravity of things. Now, I'm not saying that there's that Star Wars cannot have humor and cannot do those things, but it was rather jarring. It felt like something out of a Marvel film. And that's weird because that's not really what Star Wars is known for. Now, look. Whatever. Poe wants to, poke the bear of General Hux. Fine. But then we get to Luke, and that's what we came for, given the way the last film ended. The opening scene is great, okay, with the battle and setting up Poe as being a hothead and doing the wrong thing at the wrong time, despite being a good guy. Okay, great, fine, that's all fine. But we came here to see what happens with Luke first and foremost, so we cut to Luke. So we just had this jokey joke sequence with Poe to open the film. And now we're greeted with Luke Skywalker, wah, wah, throws it over his shoulder. In again, very comedic fashion. If I can, and I think a lot of people at that point were like, what is happening? What is going on here? There's a way to do that scene that's not that. You know what I mean? And and like, he could look at it, walk a step or two or something past Rey, briskly as he does, and then just throw it aside, like, emphatically. But the over the shoulder toss, like, it just plays so comedically that it really is jarring. I get that.
Yeah.
I get why people might be off put. However, all right, I want to get this out of the way. Let me get this out of the way.
Okay.
I'm of two minds. Okay. I think that the movie does a tremendous job with Luke Skywalker in the story they wanted to tell with Luke Skywalker. I think Mark Hamill kills this role. He is incredible. He is. I love it, and I want more of it. Can't happen, obviously, but I would sign up to watch this. Mark Hamill play Luke Skywalker any day, anytime, and he kills it in the role. And the story they wanted to tell was one of a disillusioned Luke Skywalker who finds redemption and ultimately lives up to his legend to a degree, right? And that's great.
Right.
It does that exceptionally well, and I give it full marks for it. Having said that, even now, I still have a hard time accepting the choices that were made, that specifically the way Luke got to where he got to. Like, the idea of grizzled veteran Master Luke Skywalker is cool, but how he got there I still have a hard time with it, that he would contemplate, even for a nanosecond, killing his nephew when you're talking about the Jedi who turned his father back from the dark side in the previous trilogy, the one who, in the face of getting his own hand cut off by his father, in the face of his father destroying Alderaan, in the face of everyone telling him how evil Vader was, Luke insisted, saw the good, and turned his father back. In the one who threw his lightsaber aside and told the Emperor, dead to his face, I will never turn to the dark side. That guy, I still have a hard time buying that he saw darkness in his nephew, his own blood, and was contemplating killing him. However brief it was, because again, in the movie, he does go out of his way to say, in the briefest of moments, he ignited his lightsaber and immediately felt ashamed, but it was too late. I know, I get that. But still, I have a hard time with that. I'm just going to put that out there. However, the story they told, for what it is, and the way it was done, is they did it well. And Mark Hamill is tremendous doing this role.
So, I think one of the great things they do with Luke in this film is they make him relatable again.
They do.
Because in Star Wars and in A New Hope, we can relate to Luke. We've all looked over the horizon, wondered what was going to be that next big adventure. By the end of the trilogy, he's come to the end of that journey, and he's a lot less relatable. I can relate to someone who's looked over the horizon to see what's next. I can relate to someone who's struggled to achieve something. I can't relate to someone who is, looked at as like this massive legendary figure and what he was able to do and the legend that he grew into outside of the films. So what Rian Johnson did in this film was to make him relatable again by essentially making him human again.
Yeah.
By pointing out that we're all fallible and we all fail. And yes, it's hard to believe that character would have that moment of weakness given everything he went through. But at the same time, given everything he went through, given the war that he had to fight, not only against the Empire, but against his own father, against himself, his own dark side temptations to be with his father, to get a glimpse that might all come back. And not only that it might all come back, but it might all come back through a Skywalker bloodline again. That moment of weakness is understandable. And I feel that conveying that moment of weakness and Luke's failure with Ben, losing him to the dark side, shows us that the great sin of the Skywalker family has always been vanity. And Anakin fell to it in the prequels by beginning to believe his own legend. Luke fell to it in between the films by buying into what other people were telling him he was. The only one of the family that never fell to that sin was Leia. She never fell to vanity. Her life was always that of service. And it's hard for us as fans to accept that a character we love and put so much stock in can be fallible like that. But it's the best characters, I feel, that have those flaws that can be knocked down by them. Which is one key thing why the story endures the way it has for so many generations. Luke had that moment of weakness that he instantly fought back because he remembered who he was. And Luke, like Rian Johnson used Luke so much in this to speak directly to the audience. There are times when he's speaking lines of dialogue in that film where he's speaking to the audience. And like the one that stands out the most is when he's speaking to Rey, and he says, "What do you think was going to happen? That I was going to show up with a laser sword and take on the entire First Order myself?" Because that's what people were thinking going into this film.
Right.
Oh, Luke's back. We're going to get Luke. He's going to take on the whole First Order by himself. You don't build up characters like he did in The Force Awakens. You don't have these great characters like Rey and Finn and Poe, and then just hand it all back over to Luke. Yes, those of us who've grown up with these films, those of us who've grown up with these films, we want to see more Luke, but folks. The time can be cruel, and the time for us to get films featuring these classic characters that we love so much has passed. And these characters in these films are to facilitate the introduction of new characters and a new generation of fans. And the fallacy of Luke, that he has that moment of weakness, that he tells us, like, I was wrong about the Jedi. He never says he was wrong about the Force. He was wrong about the Jedi. And this goes back to, and we had conversations like this before this film came out, of like how the Force, the portrayal of the Force had become, and Rian Johnson said it in interviews, the portrayal of the Force had become like a superpower.
Right.
And not what it was originally intended to be, which is a force of nature.
Yes.
That one of my two favorite scenes in this film, and the first one is when Luke legitimately starts to train Rey.
Mm-hmm.
And we get, for the first time, a very solid, concrete definition of what the Force is. Like, we get a definition of an empire from Yoda. We get an idea of it, but it's flushed out more in this dialogue between Luke and Rey. The balance between everything, the space between everything, how everything is connected, that the Force is not exclusively to the light side, and it's not exclusively to the dark side. It exists within both because it is of both. And that's why I think people along the way forgot.
And I agree with all that. And I think Luke's message to Rey is actually spot on. The Jedi were kind of full of crap, and at the height, like he says, at the height of their powers, they allowed the Sith to show up and just basically screw everything up. Luke saw the light, so to speak. That being a Jedi wasn't all it's cracked up to be. Now, seeing as that's all he wanted to be, that realization kind of broke him. And if there's one thing that I think that this movie was trying to push forward, and then The Rise of Skywalker completely nerfed, it's that, yes, it was time for the Jedi to end. The message of this whole movie, by the way, is death and rebirth, the cycle of life. Things change and things move on, and that's okay. That's kind of the central theme of the movie. And, like, I agree with that, okay? So the idea, like, and that's probably why I like this movie and will defend it, because that message is like, that's
Kylo
true.
Ren tells the audience that message. Let the past die.
Well,
kill it if.
I'm not about to kill it necessarily, but know, he says it in more explicit terms. But even Luke says, like, it's time for the Jedi to end. Having said that, he still agrees to train Rey, even though he says, I'll train you and I'll show you why the Jedi have to end. You know what I mean? Like, he says both at the same time. He's going to train her, but he's also going to, in training her, show her why she should not be a Jedi. Okay, well, if she shouldn't be a Jedi, but you're still showing her the ways of the Force, what are you guiding her to be? Right? So there is a there's there's a lane in this movie that I wish could have been taken. There's a lot of what ifs. Oh God, Carl, the what ifs of the sequel trilogy. But one of the lanes that I felt could have been taken was Rey learns from Luke, and she learns not just all the ways of the Jedi, but also what Luke has learned since becoming disillusioned with the idea of the Jedi. And she goes her own way entirely, right? And as even Yoda says in this movie, regarding young people, they are what we grow beyond. I'm sorry, we are what they grow beyond. Yeah. I did a Yoda thing, see?
Yeah. You flipped it down and reversed it.
Right. And that was intriguing to me. And that's the way I would have gone. However, Rise of Skywalker again reverses all of this back to status quo and whatever. We'll get to that next episode, and I'm sure I'll have a lot to say, and maybe I won't. I don't know. But again, looking specifically at this movie, it's turning things on its head in a way and saying, like, look, man, the Jedi were idealized, and they still screwed up the whole thing. So maybe this whole Force thing with Jedi and the Sith, maybe it's not that black and white. Maybe there's another way. Maybe we can just be people, and some people can use the Force, and they don't have to adhere to the strict dogma of whatever. They can just be cool and be good, but they also are in tune with the Force. And that's kind of like the direction I felt this was going to go. And that's where I felt the thrust going. Unfortunately, that's not where it went. But the cycle of death, rebirth, new overtaking the old, and that being just the natural order of things. This movie is definitely about that on its face, and I respect it for that. I think it's great. I think that theme and its messaging are great.
Yeah,
and that's why I defend this movie.
Right, and another thing, like, again, after we'll kind of move on to the other characters after this, but like another thing with Luke, what jarred people so much about the character he was in this, like, you gotta understand, you gotta look deeper than, Ben Solo turned to the dark side. Yeah, on the surface that what it is, but you gotta look deeper in that. You have your sister and your best friend have entrusted you with their child.
Right.
Your nephew, your blood, they have entrusted you to take care of this child and essentially raise him in a way that he will not follow in his grandfather's footsteps. And that, it's hard to explain. It's so cliche that you can't explain parenthood to someone who's never been a parent, because you really can't. It's like it's like an astronaut trying to explain what the experience of outer space, being in outer space is. You can to some point, but unless it's something you actually experience, you're never going to fully understand it. The failure of losing Ben Solo is not just the failure of losing Ben Solo to the dark side, but it's also the failure of a brother to his sister and a best friend to another best friend. And I don't care what achievements you have. I don't care what you've been through and how much you've strengthened yourself through your life experiences. If something like that doesn't rock you to your core and really shake your foundations, I think there might be something fundamentally wrong with you as a human being. And I think people really undersell that aspect of the character in this film.
Again, as he is written, I think it's great. It's just the question of do I consider how we got here to be valid? And I still struggle with that. However, in what they did and how he performed, like his narrative arc, it's great, and Hamill owns every second of it.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I've kind of gone over why I like this movie, because I think thematically it works. There's a lot of things thematically in this movie that work, that I like about it. But structurally, it's really uneven and messy. And that's always bugged me, even as I defend the movie. So I don't know where to begin with this, to be honest with you. And I don't know that we need to delve too deeply. But can we just agree that maybe the idea of some kind of weird chase where people can come and go as they please from said chase to go to some weird casino planet that definitely reminds me of the prequels, and then return back to said chase is a little weird structurally for a movie?
It's not that it's weird. It's just not great.
It's not great.
It definitely, for me, the key flaw in the film is the whole chase, Holdo not telling the plan. Like,
I don't.
The whole thing with Holdo not telling the plan could have been fixed with one line. Like, we're afraid the First Order has spies on the ship, or something adjacent to that.
Sure. In my repeated viewings, though, I have noticed, like, Poe. See, the audience wants to back Poe because we know him,
right?
But in watching it again, it's like, dude, you definitely defied orders that got people killed in that opening scene. You did, okay? And then when Holdo takes over, that's what she knows about him. This guy defied orders and got people killed. So I don't know Holdo, so therefore my distrust is up as a viewer, as an audience member. However, given what is, when you really watch it again, it's like, well, wait, why would she trust this guy with anything, with any sort of information like that? And it makes sense. Not to mention, when the plan fully kicks in to send Finn and Rose on the mission to Canto Bight to do the code breaker thing, which, by the way, this is all very convoluted, and it, whatever. They're only tracking from the lead ship, and yada yada. Like, it gets very in the weeds with the techno babble, but whatever. When I saw that scene happen, like, he actively says, like, she doesn't need to know the plan. It's like, oh dude, you're doing it again. Like, people's lives are at stake here, and you're putting a lot of eggs in this basket of whatever, right? Maybe tell your superior officer that of this plan. Your plan has your plan has legs. Maybe bring it up the chain so that it can be done. I don't know. So he's clearly in the wrong. I definitely have, seen that in the movie on subsequent viewings. Like, no matter how the audience might want to feel about Poe, because we know him from the first movie, wow, is he in the wrong here?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, you're right there. And actually, I'd never thought of it that way, and I really like that interpretation of it. I enjoyed the character of Holdo.
She's fine.
Wasn't crazy about her wardrobe.
I was gonna say in my notes.
This is,
there will be notes.
This is a military operation, Admiral. Not
it's not prom.
It's not prom. It's, so no, I really enjoyed her. I wish she would have survived. Um,
And
so yeah,
yet,
that's
she got
definitely.
to go out like a boss. But yeah,
Oh, she went out like probably one of the most stunning scenes in Star Wars history.
easily,
Uh,
easily. But that whole side plot
uh,
just really,
yeah,
eh.
it
And
doesn't.
if I can bring up another like murky area, the idea of Canto Bight, again, the visuals and everything, man, it felt prequely, and I got a little there were some chills. I was like, oh god, no, 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 we Force Awakens got us away from this. What are you doing? But in any case, the idea of like the same people selling weapons to the First Order and the morally gray area, right? That got weird for me right away. Now look, on paper and in, college debate circles or whatever, you can start to debate the merits of the First Order and the Resistance. You know what I mean? Like we can have discussions about who's right and who's
Yeah,
wrong, and maybe it's all kind of gray and weird and fine, okay. But let me. That's the weapon selling to both sides thing and all that, and like who's really good and who's really bad, and that's a heavy idea, and that's too heavy for Star Wars, okay? Like we're talking about in general, this is a fantasy film, okay? We have heroes and villains, and honestly, we do. Like the movie messages as such to us that we have heroes and villains. You're introducing a concept that's like, hey, your heroes and villains, they're really not heroic, and they're really not as villainous as you think. That's way too heady for this. We need a clear delineation. Who's good, who's bad. Okay, cool. Just to make the movie work, So when that concept got kind of introduced, it was like, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that. We need some solid ground to stand on here, Like I'm just trying to enjoy my space adventure, and,
yeah.
and we're getting really into the weeds.
I don't think that part is as much about saying, the good guys are really bad and the bad guys are really good, vice versa. I think it's saying it's more to establish that in this galaxy, there are those who don't necessarily fall in line with either one, and they're just trying to survive and make a little scratch on the side. Like I enjoy the character of DJ because he was Han Solo without the heart of gold. We got a straight up scoundrel who just took the best deal that was offered to him and took the money and ran. He doesn't get his comeuppance, what have you, in the film, nor do we see him at all, or is he mentioned at all in Rise of Skywalker?
Yeah, which
But
is
like he's
stupid to be. I mean, yeah,
right. He was there ultimately to service Finn's storyline.
no, okay. Can we talk about Finn's storyline?
Yes, I was just going to transition that.
He has the same storyline as he did in the first movie.
Disagree.
I mean, can't run away, got to do the right thing. That was his arc in the first movie. Can't run away, do the right thing. That's his arc in the second movie. I mean, come on. If there's any my overall reaction to the whole sequel trilogy, to be honest, is going to be a recurring theme of missed opportunities and unrealized potential. And Finn as the the rebel the rogue stormtrooper, if you will. Man, that's an idea that really was ripe, and they didn't do much with across the course of 3 movies. Maybe in the first one they did enough with, but you had that idea could go so far in the subsequent ones, and it really doesn't. He has the same arc. He's trying to run away in the first movie. And then he realizes that he has to stay for his friends. Second one, pretty much exactly the same. Wow, what an arc for Finn. I feel like he deserved better.
So in Force Awakens, Finn's arc is primarily about leaving the First Order, rejecting everything he had known about himself, and whether or not he is primarily drawn to Rey for obvious reasons, not more so Rey than the Resistance, as is the Resistance as a means to an end. And so at the end of the film, he essentially is just trying to get to Rey. It's not about the Resistance. It's about running from, like you said, running from the First Order and rejecting that life that he was raised in. The second film, it starts with that because come on, dude's been in a coma, so he hasn't had much time to develop his character in between the two films.
It's true.
Plus Last Jedi picks up like almost immediately, probably within a week or so after Force Awakens.
So there's not a lot instantaneous, really, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so there's not a lot of time for character development here. The Last Jedi for Finn is about accepting his place in the universe, finding his place in the universe, and finding out who he really is. And what part of that process was being shown who he potentially can be. And that is, for the longest time, and when I first saw it, I obviously wasn't crazy about the cancel bite scene, as most people are not. And I get it. Like you mentioned, it does have a polish to it that harkens back to the prequels. Upon further viewings of it, I feel that polish is necessary because you need to show Finn what he thinks he wants out of life. Because as soon as Finn shows up on Cancel Bite, he loves it instantaneously.
Yeah.
And he's like, I could do this. I could live like this with no problem whatsoever. It's the first time that we really see him express desire for a life that doesn't involve Rey. And still hasn't really bought into the Resistance at all. So DJ is there to kind of drive that point home that not only can you live this life, but you can be profitable at it too, if you're willing to kind of, deal to both ends of an extreme spectrum, both of which you are kind of rejecting at this point. And through his experiences on Canto Bite with Rose, seeing Canto Bite through Rose's eyes and seeing what, going back to the First Order, getting back on that ship again, Finn ultimately accepts his place in the universe, not because of Rey, but because of his own choosing. He accepts himself as a rebel, as rebel scum. And that acceptance is demonstrated in his willingness to sacrifice himself for the Resistance. And a lot of people say, they should have let him do that. They should have let him, make that sacrifice and crash the ski speeder into the Death Star cannon and, have the glorious ending. But that's not what the movie is about. It's not about sacrifice. It's about finding your place in life.
Yeah.
And Rose, again, had to remind him of that.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's fine. I don't disagree. And everything you said about the Canto Bite sequence, showing him, all that, and again, on paper, the whole Canto Bight sequence makes sense. And again, I agree with its messaging pretty much wholeheartedly. Like, it's good stuff. But in this particular narrative, it's wildly out of place. I mean, the themes are there, but how we got there is oh god, it doesn't make sense. I don't, you know what I mean? It maybe in another movie, maybe in a side story, maybe in a episode of a TV show, you know what I mean? But we're in the midst of this like life and death chase between, you know, our heroes and villains and yada yada, and here we are in this little side adventure. And it's so convenient that we even got to this side adventure, given that you were being chased down by the first, like, you know what I mean?
Right.
That whole.
No, I get it. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. And the chase story to me is more problematic than the devices that spawned from it.
Right. Like on its own, in another narrative, the whole Finn Rose thing is fine. I'm totally cool with it. But how they got there and what's at stake in the timeline, you know, like, you know what I mean? When there's a chase thing going on, I feel like there's a, you know, even in a movie, there's an internal clock in my head clicking like, okay, they have to, you know, we got to get back over there with whatever, like, soon, right? And they're just over here on this casino thing, like, you know, hey, we escaped our terrible situation, and now we're on this lush casino planet. Pretty cool, huh? You know what I mean? Like, well, why don't you just stay there? I don't know. You know what I mean? They wouldn't, because they're heroes, but like, God, it's such an, it just, if that situation was so dire, it seemed really easy just to get away from it. Why didn't everyone just take an escape pod to Canto Bight? You know?
No, I get it.
It's weird.
Yeah. Again, the structure of the film is flawed, but what the film is trying to do, as far as, like you mentioned earlier, as far as what it's trying to say, its themes, everything is just really good.
The themes and the messaging in this movie are on point, and that's why I insist that I like the movie, because it has messaging, it has themes that I agree with. It's just the narrative that supports those things is unfortunately very weird and choppy.
Yeah, and it's funny because of our three main new characters. You know, Finn and Poe have an arc that helped them to grow and establish who they are and who they're going to be in the next film, whereas Rey is left questioning at the end of the film, which is not a bad thing.
Well,
it mirrors the ending of Empire, which Luke was questioning everything. You know, Rey, while having a newfound confidence and understanding of the Force, you know, she says at the end of the film, like, how can we go on with so little? And Leia's like, we have everything we need.
If I may, I think Rey's confusion is not that's her thrust in this movie, but this movie is Rey's self-actualization, and that aspect of this movie is actually great and perfect.
Right.
And it's tragic and unfortunate that they had to undo it and whatever in the next movie because they just had to make her somebody related to somebody.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie's messaging is very, very clear that she is not anybody special, but that is not the point. The point is...
Well, no, she is not anybody, but that does not necessarily mean she's not special.
Right. That's what I was following that up. That does not mean that she is not important, and that does not mean that she does not have value. she absolutely does. And that's the point of the movie, that like
Right.
greatness and specialness comes from anywhere. You don't have to be born into it or whatever, right? And it's not just evident in Rey's story and her acceptance of that, by the way, at the end. It basically, like when Ben tells her the truth about her parents, well, at least what we perceive to be the truth in this movie, she, she accepts it. She knows it already. He just tells her the truth.
Yeah.
And she comes to terms with it and decides it doesn't really matter, because after he tells her that, he presents her with a choice of, what to do, and she decides to do what she wants to do because it's the right thing to do. She self-actualizes, right?
Right.
And she saves the Resistance with her learnings from Luke Skywalker and whatnot, and she accepts her place as, whatever, as a Jedi or whatever she's going to be, and she is no longer, pining for her parents and all, like, you know what I mean? That narrative arc is closed. She has faced the truth, and after facing it, still is a hero and does the heroic deed, right? Now, that theme of greatness and coming from anywhere is even reinforced in the final scene of the movie, which, by the way, I will go to my grave saying is brilliant. Brilliant.
You're talking about Broom Boy?
Yes.
Yes.
That is brilliant. The kids playing with the makeshift toys, telling the legend of Luke Skywalker and all that, just for the kid to get chased off by an oppressor and show that he, even unbeknownst to himself of to what he's dealing with, you know what I mean? Like, he just casually brings the broom to his hand in that oh so casual motion that's like so quick you might miss it. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
And then he looks up at the stars because he wants to get out of this, his plight. Blah. Come on, man, it's obvious, right? Luke Skywalker wants to get off the farm. It is obvious, but it's brilliant. That kid is us, dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's playing Star Wars toys, and then he wants to be in. Oh, it's amazing. And all that, again, self-actualization, the future, you are what all of it. All of it. You don't have to come from the noble bloodline to be special. This kid's in a stable. Rey is nobody. But you know what I mean? It's all there in this movie. And I like all of that messaging. That's all great stuff. And that's why I like the movie. Yeah. Having said that, it definitely dawned on me in watching Broom Boys, that sequence. I was like, man, that is so good. That is so good. That scene would have been these movies would have been so effective, more effective, had they taken place like 1,000 years after the events of the original trilogy, and arguably we never see our original heroes again. But we pick up with these kids playing with toys that are the legends that we grew up with. And they become the new heroes that the new story could be. I only say that because, we don't get, because of all the missed opportunities and all the things that, people might be upset about with the sequel trilogy. For instance, our principal heroes from the original don't get back together on screen again. I've been over that last time. The unhappy ending for our heroes that we saw have a happy ending at the end of Return of the Jedi, and how sad that kind of is. That's all tough to deal with. But man, that Broom Boy sequence is like, oh God, if you would have set these movies far after our heroes are long gone and are the stuff of legends, and kids in stables in terrible conditions are still talking about them and like relaying their stories as legend. That is so powerful. And I don't know. I'm just playing what if, but to me,
No, I get it.
yeah, that could have been cool. And in this movie, it's still cool.
Yeah, I would definitely like to see that story. We talked about Finn. We've talked a little bit about Rey. Let's talk about Poe for a little bit.
Okay.
Poe's arc, while not as flushed out as Finn and Rey's, is still significant for him.
Yeah.
Because his arc is that he learns to be a leader.
He does.
And he learns it through some bad mistakes, some painful choices, but he also learns it through the guiding hand and occasional slap of Leia Organa, arguably the greatest leader in Star Wars history.
Yes.
And it's unfortunate because of most of all of his arc takes place in that storyline that we find problematic with the film being the chase. But especially at the end, when he begins to understand that sacrifices have to be made for something like this to survive. And a sacrifice of something to the level of Luke Skywalker so that the Resistance can escape and rebuild doesn't mean that he should charge head on into impossible odds battle like he did in the first film or in the beginning of the film.
Right.
And so I think it's a good arc for him. I just wish they had found another way to convey it.
Yeah, his situation is like narratively fine, but it's the Canto Bight diversion, yada yada, that makes it problematic.
Yeah.
But I mean, but him learning how to be a leader through, the way he did, learning the hard way, unfortunately, that's all fine. It's all fine. And again, on rewatch, even the opening battle when Leia tells him that's a direct order, get out of there, and it's like, no, we're gonna do this, and it's like, yeah, dude, you just defied a direct order from Leia Organa, right? And what immediately follows that, people die, his squad gets killed, and sure, they take out the dreadnought, great, but man, you just lost your bomber fleet, you lost friends, you lost pilots, you all could have reconvened and lived to fight another day, Yeah. And it's so obvious on subsequent viewings, dude, the hero stuff, we all kind of want a rah-rah hero guy, but at the same time, that there's a time and a place, and he has to learn that. He and we, to a degree, have to learn that lesson.
You have to remember you're in service of a greater cause.
Right.
You're in service of others.
Yep.
And I think he believes that in the beginning. Just the way he chooses to go about it is ill-advised.
Yep.
But still, at the end, the lessons are learned. He comes to a realization, and he learns to be a leader. He's probably one of the few things that wasn't bad in Rise of Skywalker. And when I say few things, I mean very few things.
I have no recollection, so I'll find out when I watch it again before our next podcast. Having said that, people that want to be divisive about this movie, look, it is what it is. It's not. Again, we both say it's not perfect, right?
Right.
However, there are those that would say about the sequel trilogy as a whole, even, but this movie being the biggest culprit well, I don't even know. I don't know where Rise of Skywalker falls on the scale, but this movie definitely was the beginning of the big, wedge. See, these sequel movies are bad, so therefore the prequel movies are good. And no, I'm sorry, I can't get there. You can say whatever you want about the quality of the sequel trilogy and whatever, however you feel about The Last Jedi, and it's whatever it has to say. But in terms of just filmmaking and cast, direction, acting, lighting, etc., it still outshines any of the prequels in every way, basically.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
Even in the most divisive, even of Rise of Skywalker, I will tell you that there is so much great work being put in by people. Okay, like Oscar Isaac and John Boyega and Daisy Ridley. Everyone is putting in the work. It's almost, and again, said it before, say it again, missed opportunities, missed potential. It's not for lack of talent. Everyone involved in this movie, in these three movies, man, they have chemistry. They have so much chemistry. It's ridiculous how much chemistry they have, and we like them. And it's kind of a shame that they didn't get more to work with. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I say that as someone who likes The Force Awakens and likes The Last Jedi. But the legacy of the sequel trilogy, unfortunately, is not great right now. Maybe it'll be reviewed better later, but for now, it's kind of like, it's this kind of thing that we have to just accept, and it's not going to be held in the same, well, to be fair, nothing's going to be held in the same regard as the original trilogy, ever,
yeah.
But, man, they click. They all click together so well, and we root for them. We really do. We root for them. We like them.
Yeah, and listen, folks. I know we're running long, but Drew and I kind of knew of the three that this one would be the one talked about the most, because there's still some points I want to hit.
Sure.
Rose.
Oh, dude,
Folks, I got news for you. Rose is a friggin' awesome character.
She is,
and I'll tell you.
She really
I'll
is.
tell you why she is an awesome character, because Rose is us. Rose is an avatar for Star Wars fans. And she goes so far beyond that, but that's like her base makeup, what she's intended to be. And I'll tell you right now, if you have a problem with Kelly Marie Tran in this role, you know what? Just stop listening to our show right now. We're totally fine if you never want to download another episode, because this woman has so much heart and so much dedication, and the crap she took for playing a role that she did fantastically, and just was none of it deserved. Like if you've got a problem with anything I just said, just stop listening.
That was pretty much my notes, actually. Like, man, she did not deserve an ounce of the hate that she got on for this role. She's great, and her character is fine. And I don't know where people got off. I don't know. I don't know what that was about, because she's fine. She's great. Okay, she's great in the role, and her character is fine. I don't know what the big deal was, and I feel my heart goes out to her for all that crap that had to happen. Had to scratch that. The crap that happened did not have to happen. Should not have happened. Yeah. What's the problem? Her sister in the film, in the movie,
right?
Her character's sister dies in service to the Resistance. When she encounters Finn, she is still processing this. Okay? and
Right.
and she is she feels like she's basically a lowly technician in this battle, right? Her sister
Right.
was a pilot, a bomber, yada yada. And now her sister's gone. And if her sister can't, affect things, what chance does she have being this lowly, technician on a ship? What in this conflict, Then she
Yeah.
meets Finn, and I have a note about that. Like, even she has heard of him and his story, being a rogue stormtrooper who was escaped and left the First Order, and she is inspired by it. And from there, her character evolves, right? And it informs Finn's character. That's all great. That like it's all great stuff. And I don't know what the deal was. Rose is cool, and I feel bad that I not only feel bad that she had to endure all that crap on Twitter. I feel bad that in the follow-up movie they sidelined her as a result of the Twitter people.
Yeah.
That's so dumb, but whatever.
Right.
We'll talk about Rise of Skywalker next time.
Yeah. So, a real quick touchdown before we move on to one of the final characters we're going to talk about. I want to talk about Snoke.
Okay.
Drew,
yeah.
You know what the difference is between Snoke in this trilogy and Palpatine in the classic trilogy is? The internet. That's it. That is the difference between these two characters. Because people complain, we never knew who Snoke was. We didn't learn anything about Snoke. He was barely in it. Folks, if you look back at the classic trilogy, we knew nothing about the Emperor. We didn't even know his name was Emperor Palpatine. We never saw him except for one quick scene in Empire before Jedi. I got news for you. Snoke's got more time in these two films than Palpatine had in the classic trilogy. More screen time. He's got more lines. He did more. And people are all bent out of shape that he got killed in this one. When him getting killed was the best thing that could have happened for Kylo Ren.
Yes, for Kylo Ren's story it is. However, just devil's advocate for what it's worth. I that's all true. Everything you just said is true. But we can't forget that these movies are sequels to movies we've seen. So we do need some explanation as to who he was, where he came up to be the First Order Supreme Leader, and where he had the resources to have all these ships and the remnants of the Empire, yada, you know what I mean? Something.
No, we didn't. Did we have any of that with Palpatine? Did we have any of that with Palpatine?
We didn't need it because the stakes were established very clearly in the first movie. And in New Hope, it was in A New Hope. We know that there is an empire, and then we hear reference of the Emperor in A New Hope, and then we see him, and then in Empire, and then in Return of the Jedi, we get a lot more of him. That's fine. Those are our introductory movies. Now we're into a sequel set of movies where the Empire's been destroyed, but not really, because they're still kind of around because of this Snoke guy, but we don't know how. Who is he I'm not saying I need a full backstory. I'm not saying I need, the Snoke prequel or whatever, but give me something before we just off the guy. By the way, I'm fine offing him here. Don't get me wrong. But, there's the whole thing leading up to that throne room scene. I felt like, okay, here's where he's going to relay how he reclaimed the Empire and yada. You know what I mean? Something. Even give me something before he's gone. Again, I'm fine killing him off here because, again, like you said, it's perfect for Kylo Ren's story. That's the important part. Snoke is not important. Kylo Ren is the important part here. Let's remember that. So I'm fine with that. But I understand, and even watching it now, I'm like, so how did this guy in the robe come to rule the Empire? Because I don't know, and we're never going to find out. And that's kind of a bummer. I don't care that he's dead. I'm fine with Kylo Ren killing him. In fact, that's pretty awesome. For Kylo Ren's narrative, it's perfect. But man, a line of dialogue would have helped. Just saying, when the Empire fell apart, I picked up the piece. Okay, fine, cool. That's enough, Not to mention the fact that he's like a Sith Lord, and we have that whole. Here's an instance, Carl, of the prequels screwing us. Because we know of the whole rule of two and all that crap. When Snoke shows up being the Emperor for all intents and purposes in the sequel trilogy, knowing the rule of two and all that, we have to assume that he had been around, or he was like Snoke's or a Palpatine's apprentice or whatever, right? Now, had we not ever heard the rule of two, had the prequels not existed at all, and we just had a new dark side guy on top, I think we would have been okay, way more okay with it. But because we have all this lore that in the recesses of our brains, we start to go but that doesn't work with the logic that you've established, and my brain hurts now. However, you are right in terms of him versus the Emperor. The stats are on your side. He's as inconsequential. He is. He's less important. He has more screen time. He's done more, yada yada, than the Emperor did, and we never complained. And yet we are in sequel territory. Some explanation would have been nice.
We didn't need it.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
The problem is the reason people got so bent out of shape from it is because we had 2.5, 3 years of, well, maybe he's this.
It's true.
Maybe he's maybe he came from this. Maybe fan theory.
Star Wars loves
3 years
fan theories.
And people just wanting to know the answer when it just wasn't important. And you got what you got your answers in Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Hope you're happy.
Yeah.
Hope you're happy.
I'm not.
Star Wars.
I'm not.
Yeah. So
I'm not happy. We could have done better.
Yeah. So let's talk about Leia really quickly.
Yeah.
Bittersweet here, obviously, because we had lost Carrie Fisher shortly about a year or so before the film's release. I think I know it was before the film's release.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew this was kind of our last legitimate time with Carrie Fisher in this role. She kills it like she always does. Every scene she's in, she's fantastic. The space Leia scene, as it's come to be known,
mm-hmm.
I'll be the first one to say, does not look great.
See,
but
I wrote down in my notes, I don't get the problem with this at all. It's fine. I don't understand.
No, it's fine.
People get bent about this.
They really do.
I don't get it.
I just didn't want the character to go out like that.
And she didn't.
And she didn't. I was like I was literally in theater. I was like, oh no, it's not going to be like this, is it? And then she came back. I was like, okay, great. I don't understand what's happening here, but okay, fine. She's alive. She's still alive. That's fine.
Look, we have to establish, and they casually established, and along the way that Leia was definitely one. She could use the Force, right? That scene to me is like, oh, buddy, she can use the Force. Okay?
Yeah.
I have no problem with it, and I find it silly that people get bent about it. Like, what is the problem? She got blasted into space and through the power of the Force dragged herself back in, from the brink back on board a ship. That's awesome. Like, what are you complaining about? That's cool as hell.
Right. And there's a very there's a passing of the baton in this film as far as rebel leadership goes, not only from Leia to Holdo, but from Leia to Poe as well.
Yeah, yeah. And if you want it, if you want it, there's a passing of Jedi leadership from Luke to Leia here as well. That scene could definitely be interpreted as like Luke is cut off, but Leia over here very much in touch.
Right. Yeah, the Luke and Leia scene in the end, very touching, very, very emotional for reasons within the film and from and outside of the film.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, the Leia in this film obviously fantastic, as she always was. It's again, you mentioned the what ifs, and it's one of the biggest what ifs about Rise of Skywalker, because like, as JJ always said, like each of the sequel trilogies was going to be in some part one of the classic cast members' films. Force Awakens is very much Han's story. Last Jedi is very much Luke's film. The third one was supposedly going to be very much Leia's film, but obviously for reasons we couldn't, things had to change. So let's get to Kylo Ren.
Mm-hmm.
This is probably going to be where we're going to close it out. Wow, you want to talk about story arcs and how a character changes, where a character goes in this. Kylo Ren, you can make an argument, had the best one of all of them. Because we are, in the beginning, we were introduced to Kylo Ren we knew in Force Awakens. And Snoke kind of sees it's time for him to leave Vader behind. It's time for him to stop trying to be Vader and start to try and be himself. So we get that line, take that ridiculous mask off. Again, a very meta line. Does he mean it literally? Yes. Is it also meant figuratively? Yes. And we see shortly after that scene the rejection of what that mask means, and him becoming more him, a full person unto himself. And towards the end of the film, we see that no, he is not Vader 2.0, because he is not going to turn back to the light side.
Right.
He is Kylo Ren. Ben Solo is dead.
Yep.
He is Kylo Ren, supreme leader of the First Order, fully set in his way, fully determined, and it was great. See,
and again, potential what ifs, because we know where we know where this goes in the next movie, right? Yeah. But I agree with you. I've been on record. I'll say it again. I'm firmly team no redemption, because you killed Han Solo, buddy. Anyway, he struggles. He's clearly struggling in this movie, right? And when presented, when he does the air quotes right thing, kills Snoke, saves Rey.
Yeah.
Immediately after doing that, what does he do? He wants to take power and rule. And Rey immediately knows, like, you haven't really changed at all. Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, like, yeah, that's his arc, man. Like, we can get deeper into that. I suppose I'm not not for nothing. I'm flaming out, but he no redemption. He had his conflict. He has to stop trying to be someone else and start being himself. And what does himself end up being? Like you said, he just wants power for himself, not to live up to any kind of legacy, not to fulfill someone else's destiny. At a certain point in the movie, that being the ending, he's gone through all those phases, and he decides, like, I'm gonna take charge for me. And wrong choice, buddy, and no redemption. But we didn't. I mean, it's like poetry; it has to rhyme, right, George?
Yeah. So,
he's great though. Adam Driver, by the way, is great.
Oh my god! Even though we don't like where the character goes in Rise of Skywalker, Adam Driver is still just like still killing it.
Yep. Everyone is. I might not like 100% where all this goes, but like I said, I'm not gonna shortchange anyone's effort in these movies. The work is put in. It's all there. It's on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole Rey and Kylo thing is, they have a lot of chemistry. Man, this cast, yeah. The chemistry with everyone involved. My God, I don't know that they needed to go any further than they did in this movie, but when they clearly touched a nerve with fans in this with them and the teasing of the union and the turning and the double turning and yada yada. Yeah, that's all very good, but I thought it was very clear at the end of the movie that she firmly rejects the union idea. I mean, she's the one who actively closes the door while they are within, their little connection with each other, and she just goes like, "I'm out, see ya." And that's good. He made his choices, and he decided what he wanted to do. She made her choice and decided what she wanted to do. And really, and talk to me about this really quickly. That was the thing that really confused me about this movie. Is the feeling at the end of the movie. This movie had a strange sense of finality at the end of it that left me confused and not sure and not excited about the prospect of a third sequel movie, which is weird, right? Like, shouldn't I be on the edge of my seat? And this one just felt like final. And it was very, and I think I relayed that to you too, and you said the same thing, like, where the heck are they going? Because this movie really feels like it closes off so many avenues. The ending of the Last Jedi feels so final. Even though we know, okay, even though we have clearly established Kylo Ren, evil overlord, Rey, Resistance hero. Okay, we now have those things clearly set in stone. Decisions on both characters' parts as to what their destinies are. So that does set up for a third, but the feeling at the end of this movie doesn't feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely feels that the Resistance has been defeated.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. The entire Resistance is able to escape on the Falcon. That's not an army. They hint that there are other supporters that just didn't answer the call. I would have probably liked to have seen a greater time jump between Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker. It's 1 year. I said in between, like, I'd really like to see like a 10-year time jump.
Wow.
And like, you have, if you do a time jump like that, then a rebuilt Resistance is more believable than, kind of what we had. But yeah, the ending of the film, only because like you're left in, especially the first time you see it. Obviously, um, Luke sacrifices himself for the resistance, and I loved the thought that with because like you see that last scene with him, and he's looking at binary suns before he becomes one with the Force, and I love the thought that the the planet that he was on, its name escapes me at the moment.
Octu or whatever?
Octo. Yes, thank you, Octo. The planet that he was on was did not in fact have two suns, but that he used that last bit of his life force to force project himself to Tatooine to see that one last time.
Huh.
And that's the interpretation I subscribe to.
Okay, fair.
And just that last moment, and then like the clothes drop and everything, and so yeah, you're left with an uncertain and kind of sense of finality that doesn't really lend itself to another film. But yeah, to me, it's definitely in my top 3 of Star Wars films. It's probably 1A behind as far as quality. For me, it's like, right behind Empire, just because of everything it says and communicates, everything Rian Johnson did, all the stuff we mentioned. It's unfortunate, again, that's as divisive as it is. Who knows what time will bring with the film. So
yeah, I can't rank it like you can, but I find it more enjoyable than not, and I defend it against people who are so adamantly against it. I'm not saying I don't understand their critiques necessarily, because the comedic tone stuff is a bit off-putting, and the Canto Bight, but the whole structure, honestly, is a little weird. But the messaging and all that, I don't know, that stuff strikes a chord with me, in a way that, your Rise of Skywalker sure doesn't, and, your prequels sure don't. So I have to hold it in high regard. I really do. Even as I can poke all these holes in it, and I have my own issues with it, I still will say that I like The Last Jedi. So, there you go.
All right. So, folks, we appreciate you sticking with us. We know it was a long one, but we kind of knew this one was going to be. If you want to share with us your thoughts on The Last Jedi, send us any questions or comments to the show. You can do so at the following locations. You can follow us on Twitter at Devils Do Pod. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/Devils Do Pod. You can email us at thedevilsdopod@gmail.com, or you can find all these resources available to you on our website, thedevilsdopodcast.com. Drew, I'm going to go pretend a broom handle is a lightsaber. What are you going to do?
I'm going to go play with some makeshift Star Wars toys.
Awesome. Folks, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. Come back to us in 2 weeks, and stay safe, stay healthy.
May the Force be with you.
May the Force be with you.